President Biden is about to take center stage with world leaders at the United Nations General Assembly to call on world leaders to stop Russian aggression on Ukraine. The president landed in New York City just a few hours ago. Tomorrow, he will address the international body, and it comes at a critical juncture in the war in Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky is also scheduled to address the UN and make the case for continued international support. No one from the Russian delegation is slated to speak. But while there is real concern over President Putin's actions, if not his words, today, Russia is calling for a vote to be held in 4 Ukrainian territories on whether they should officially join Russia. This would mean Russia literally annexing part of Ukraine. Joining us now is Dmitry Alperovich, chairman of the Silverado Policy Accelerator, a bipartisan think tank and an expert on Russia. Dmitry, I hope I got your last name right. Did I say it correctly?
Close enough, Alperovich. Thank you.
Okay. Putin is under fire at home from a lot of war hawks for the humiliating loss of 3,000 square miles of territory and that Russian military defeat. Is this his way of striking back, calling for this referendum?
It is, and I'm afraid he's not going to stop there. He had 2 choices after that devastating defeat. Admit that he has lost and pull out, or escalate, and he's clearly choosing to escalate. The referendums are a big deal for several reasons. One, you're absolutely right, he's annexing part of Ukraine, but even more importantly, he's annexing parts of Ukraine that he actually does not control. They're announcing referendums in these 4 oblasts, 4 regions of Ukraine, and all 4 of them have parts of those regions that the Ukrainians currently control. In fact, Ukrainians are making progress in taking some of that territory back. So he's actually going to say that this area that the Ukrainians are controlling is going to be part of Russia constitutionally as of next week. That's a really big deal because it theoretically can come under the Russian nuclear umbrella, where he can say that he's under the Russian doctrine, he can use nuclear weapons to defend it.
Right. And an attack on a part of what is now Ukraine that Russia then claims as its own could mean Russia being drawn into a war with, my gosh, even NATO and the U.S. I mean, this is a pretty serious thing. We heard President Zelensky today call this referendum a, quote, sham vote. How does this work? I mean, is this going to be a fair vote, really?
Well, Elizabeth, if you can believe that the Russians can put together a referendum in 3 days in territories that are occupied and some of them are not even occupied next week, and it's going to be a legitimate referendum, I've got a bridge to sell you. Of course, it's going to be a sham referendum. Of course, it's been prepared in the Kremlin. They know the results in advance. They're prepared to accept those results, which will be a yes vote in all 4 regions, and make the constitutional change in Russia to annex it. But more importantly, he's going to give a speech in probably 6 or 7 hours, the Russian state television has announced, and he will likely call for mobilization, at least a partial mobilization of the Russian forces, because he knows he's losing. He doesn't have enough manpower in Ukraine to hold those territories, and he needs a lot more people, and that means probably taking conscripts and others and sending them to Ukraine.
Right, and this comes as they're announcing that troops who desert or Russian soldiers who refuse to serve will face 10 years in prison.
Not just that, but troops that surrender can face up to 10 years in prison as well. So he's clearly ramping it up. He's trying to put the society on a war footing. He met today with leaders of defense industry in Russia, telling them that they need to ramp up production because Russia is starting to run low on munitions and weapons. So he is changing the entire character of the country, which to this day really has not paid much attention to this war. It has tacitly supported, but mostly through apathy. Now they're going to be in this fight because their sons and daughters are going to be directly fighting, likely in this war if he calls for mobilization. And the nature of the economy is going to change, where it's going to be focused on production of military equipment.
Wow, very tense. Pretty scary times. And by the way, this territory that he's calling for this referendum, that would be 15% of Ukraine that he would just swallow. At any rate, Dmitry, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We really appreciate your expertise on this issue.
Thank you.
Coming up.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.